Margaret Chan woke up in her hospital bed and immediately felt something was different. The room looked the same. It was a nice private room at the medical center she had helped build 20 years ago. But the feeling in the air had changed. Felt heavy and strange. The nurses moved differently now. They walked faster and quieter. They looked at her with sad eyes. But the biggest change was in how Dr. Williams talked to her nephew, Daniel, right outside her door. Margaret knew about medicine because she had worked in hospitals her whole life. She understood what was happening. There was no more hope. That was the change. The doctors had finally stopped pretending she would get better. Welcome to JAMAL'S Stories. I share new life stories here every day. I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and like my video. Now let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. She kept her eyes almost closed. This was a trick she learned long ago when she wanted to hear what people were saying. They would think she was sleeping or not paying attention. The medicine they gave her made her body feel numb and sleepy. But her mind was still working perfectly. It was working clearly and sharply, like a diamond that was about to break. Daniel Chen, Dr. Williams said. His voice sounded tired and careful. He was a good doctor. But he usually saw Margaret as his boss, not as a patient. Now he sounded different. He sounded human and almost broken. I have to tell you the truth. Margaret's condition is very serious. Her kidneys are failing. They are getting worse even though we tried everything. Her body is shutting down piece by piece. We are doing everything we can. Maybe 3 days. Maybe less. I'm very sorry. Silence. A silence that was so loud in Margaret's ears. It was the silence of a death sentence. Her body was giving up. But someone else had caused this. Margaret felt her heart still beating. 3 days. That meant the doctors were finally saying what she had been feeling for the past week. Her body was dying. She was 51 years old. She owned a big company that made medical equipment. She had buildings in the city. She had bank accounts. She had money. She had built everything through hard work and staying up late at night. She learned hard lessons from her first life that didn't work out. And now she only had 3 days left. She thought about the past 20 years. Her first marriage ended badly. She never had children. She only had her business. She built it. She made it bigger. She bought more companies. Everything she owned she earned by herself. She did all of this long before she married Daniel. Her money was her protection. Her money kept her safe. But when she was 48, she suddenly realized her house was empty. The evenings felt like they would never end. Daniel Chen came into her life during that empty time. He was a handsome man. He was 12 years younger than her. He was kind and paid attention to her. He was charming. He worked as a manager at one of her factories. When he first asked her to have dinner with him, Margaret felt young again. He made her feel special. He brought back the light in her life. She needed that warmth so badly. She didn't want to see the cold darkness in his eyes. The door opened. Margaret didn't move at all. Daniel walked into the room. She smelled his cologne. It was expensive cologne that she had given him for his birthday. The smell now made her feel sick. He sat on the side of her bed. He took her hand. His fingers were warm and clean. Margaret's breathing became shallow. She felt every muscle in her body get tight inside. But on the outside, she looked perfectly relaxed and calm. She looked like a patient who was sleeping from strong medicine. He thought she was unconscious. The nurses told him that this morning. What happened next? Margaret would remember until her very last breath. Daniel squeezed her hand. He rubbed her wrist with his thumb. Then he whispered. His voice sounded almost sweet. But underneath it was icy and hard. Finally. I've been waiting for this for so long. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of being patient. Waking up every morning to look at that cold, busy face. Holding this hand. Touching this body. The only thing that mattered was the money it controlled. Margaret felt tight inside. But her body showed nothing. She lay there like a stone statue, perfectly calm. But inside her, A terrible storm of horror and anger was raging. Your house, your millions, Daniel continued. There was a new tone in his voice that she had never heard before. It wasn't love. It wasn't care. It wasn't even normal respect. It was pure hatred and victory. It all belongs to me now. 3 whole years. For 3 years I played a game. I listened to your speeches about business and doing the right thing. I smiled at your friends. I lay in bed with you. 3 years of hating you while I hid it behind expensive cologne and fake attention. Do you know how much I hated you, Margaret? Your pride. Your know-it-all way of talking. You thought you bought me, didn't you? A young handsome man for your empty life. But I had a much better plan. Daniel laughed quietly. It was an ugly sound that hurt to hear. He leaned closer. Margaret smelled alcohol on his breath. He often drank in the mornings. It showed that he was empty inside. And now it's finally over. The juice was perfect. Tiny bit every single day. Small. Slow. They thought it was stress. They thought it was because you worked too hard. They thought it was your age. Perfectly done plan. Nobody will ever know. You will die and I will get everything you work so hard for. He stood up. He let go of her fingers. He seemed impatient now that he didn't have to pretend anymore. He fixed the blanket like he cared about her. Then he walked out. Margaret heard him talking to someone. Probably the nurse in the hallway. He told her to take good care of his wife. He said he would come back soon. His voice sounded sad and worried. He was acting perfectly right up to the last second. When the door closed, Margaret opened her eyes. The ceiling looked blurry. But not because she was weak. It was because of rage. Rage so hot it ran through her whole body. Everything that happened in the past few months suddenly made perfect sense now. The slow breaking down of her health. First came slight sickness in her stomach. Then weakness. Then dizziness. The doctors blamed it on stress and working too much. She thought so too. How stupid she was to trust him. The man who acted like he was saving her from being lonely. But 3 weeks ago, another episode happened right in her office. They brought her to the hospital. Her blood tests showed strange things that shouldn't be there. Margaret didn't trust even her own doctors. So she secretly sent a blood sample to a different lab in another city called Riverside. The result came 5 days ago when she was already lying in this hospital bed. The poison test found traces of a substance that shouldn't have been in her blood. It was a rare medicine used to help people who are dying and in pain feel better. In small amounts it makes you sleepy. In large amounts it destroys your kidneys and then your other body parts shut down. Margaret didn't want to believe it at first. She thought the lab made a mistake. She asked them to test again. The second test said the same thing. And now, after Daniel's words, there was no doubt at all. She was poisoned slowly for months. The truth hit her like a shock. It turned her rage into cold, careful planning. She would not die before she took everything away from him. Everything he murdered her for. Margaret tried to sit up. But her body wouldn't listen. Her hands shook. She lay there staring at the ceiling. She tried to think of a plan. 3 days. If the doctors were right, she had 3 days left to fix everything. She knew Daniel well. She knew he was handsome and charming. But he was empty inside. She thought a comfortable life would be enough for him. How foolish she was. He wanted more. He wanted everything. And he thought she was too weak and sick to stop him. But he was wrong. Even though her body was failing, her mind was still sharp. She needed help from someone outside. Someone invisible. Someone who had no connection to her old life. Margaret slowly turned her head toward the door. Someone was working with a bucket in the hallway. She heard water splashing. She heard the sound of a mop scraping. She called out softly, "Girl." Her voice was rough and much weaker than she wanted. The noise stopped. After a few seconds, the door opened just a little. Cleaning woman looked inside. She was a young woman with brown skin and dark hair tied back. Her face was plain and friendly. She wore no makeup. Margaret had seen her before. She cleaned the floors in the hallway. She changed the bedsheets. She emptied the trash. It was hard work that nobody thanked her for. Margaret saw the tiredness deep in her eyes. But she also saw hidden strength there. This girl had been pushed into a corner by life. Are you feeling sick? The young woman stepped closer. She looked worried. She smelled like cleaning liquid and damp cloth. I'll call the nurse right away. No need, Margaret forced herself to speak clearly. What is your name? Rosa. Rosa Martinez. Rosa closed the door. I need your help. The girl looked confused. Her eyes got wider. But the serious look in Margaret's eyes made her obey. She closed the door. She came closer and looked at Margaret's face. Are you okay? Do you need a doctor? I'm fully awake and thinking clearly. Margaret looked into her eyes. And I need you to do something for me. Don't tell anyone I am awake. Not my nephew. Not the doctors. But call my lawyer Thomas Murphy. His number is in my phone in the drawer. Tell him Margaret Chen asks him to come right away. Personal emergency. Rosa shook her head. Her hands started moving nervously. She was scared of losing her job. That fear was bigger than her curiosity. Can't do that. That's not my job. If they find out. If you do everything I say. Margaret paused to gather her strength. Speaking was very hard. You will get enough money to never work as a cleaner again. Never mop strange floors or empty trash again. Mean it. I know you have debt, Rosa. I know you took care of your grandmother until she died. And you are still paying the costs of that care. This money will pay all of that and much more. The girl looked at her in shock. But something lit up in her eyes. Oh, desperation. Margaret saw that this girl was holding on to any chance she could get. Rosa thought about the monthly payment she still owed for her dead grandmother's nursing home. She thought about the empty cupboard in her tiny apartment. You're serious about this? Her voice was barely a whisper. Absolutely. But we have little time. Call Murphy. Rosa rushed to the drawer and took out the phone. It was new and heavy and cool in her hands. Her fingers shook as she looked through the contacts. She found the name and pressed call. Margaret heard long rings. Finally someone picked up. Mr. Murphy, excuse me. I'm calling from the hospital. From Margaret Chen. She asks you to come urgently. The lawyer asked something. Rosa swallowed hard. Yes, she's awake. She says it's a very urgent personal matter. She sounded like she was saying a secret promise. She handed the phone to Margaret. Margaret took it, barely holding on. Thomas, it's me, she said. Her voice was steady now. Her rage gave her strength. I need to make a new will today. Come right away and bring a notary with you. Don't tell anyone. I am being murdered, Thomas. This is my last chance to get my revenge. Murphy was silent for a second on the other end. Then he answered briefly. His voice sounded serious and strong. I'm on my way. I'll be there in about an hour. I'll bring Sarah and everything we need. Margaret gave the phone back to Rosa. Thank you. Now just wait here and stay quiet. When he arrives, stay as a witness. Do you understand? But why me? Why do you trust me? Rosa was overwhelmed by what was happening. Margaret smiled weakly. There was cold pleasure on her pale face. Because you are an outsider. You are not part of my circle. My nephew cannot buy you or scare you. You are not interesting to him. You have no loyalties he can break. And I need you exactly as you are. Pure. Desperate. Ready. Rosa sat in the chair by the wall. She was shocked by what was happening. She realized she held a rich woman's life in her hands. The feeling was overwhelming. Margaret closed her eyes and gathered her strength. 1 hour. She had to hold on. Inside, she repeated Daniel's hateful words. Those words were her fuel. Time passed very slowly. Felt like forever. Dusk was coming outside. The November day was ending early. The hospital light was cold and bright. Rosa sat silently. Sometimes she looked at Margaret. She no longer saw Margaret as her boss. She saw her as a dying mystery. A woman who was opening the door to a new life for her. Exactly 1 hour later, the door opened. Thomas Murphy stepped in. He was a 56-year-old fit man in a suit. His eyes showed he was a smart and experienced lawyer. He had been Margaret's support for many years. His face was now serious, almost angry. He was followed by his assistant Sarah Cole. She was 27 years old. She had a tablet in her hand and a sharp look on her face. Murphy's first action was to look quickly at Rosa by the wall. Margaret Chin. Murphy walked to the bed and looked at her face. What's going on? Close the door, Margaret commanded. Sit down and listen carefully. I have no time for small talk or surprises. Murphy nodded to Sarah, who closed the door. Rosa stayed standing by the wall. Her breathing was shallow. She was afraid to move. Murphy noticed the tears in her eyes and her pale skin. He quietly made note of these details. Murphy sat down and pulled out a voice recorder. May I record this? For legal clarity. Yes, you may. I want every word written down. Margaret told him briefly and clearly. But her voice was filled with cold anger. She told him about the test results. About the poison in her blood. About Daniel's words half an hour ago. She talked about Daniel's look of victory. About the moment she realized she wasn't sick but being murdered. Murphy listened without stopping her. But his face got harder and harder. The news about the poisoning didn't completely surprise him. But Daniel's open show of victory did. Do you have the test reports in your safe at home? The code is my mother's birthday. Get them and make copies. That is the proof against him. That is the basis for a criminal case. Murphy said slowly. His voice was deep. But first we must protect your will. Otherwise the entire estate will go to your nephew by law. Legal steps must come before human revenge. That is exactly why I called you. I want to leave everything to this young woman. Margaret pointed to Rosa with a weak movement of her head. Rosa Martinez. And she will pay you well for your services. We will include that in the will too. Murphy turned and looked carefully at the cleaning woman. Rosa was very pale. But she nodded yes. The thought of becoming a millionaire was too strange to believe. But the idea of taking away Daniel's inheritance started to make her feel cold satisfaction. But why her? Murphy's question was both professional and personal. 'Cause she is here. Because I trust her. And because I have no time for doubts. My entire estate was mine before marriage. Have no children. It is mine and I can give it to whoever I wish. Make the will so Daniel cannot fight it. Protect it against every legal attack. Murphy nodded. His mind was working fast. We need a notary and a doctor to confirm you are able to make the will right now. Without that, the will can be attacked. You have to prove you're thinking clearly. Do it today. Right now. I need an independent witness who gives Daniel no reason to attack this. All right. Sarah, call the emergency notary. Find an independent brain doctor or mind doctor from another hospital. They must come immediately. Make sure this doctor has no contact with Dr. Williams. Sarah went out and took out her phone. Murphy turned to Rosa. His look was serious. Ma'am, do you understand what is happening? Rosa nodded uncertainly. Not really. Scary. You will inherit the entire estate of Margaret Chen. The house, the business, the properties, the bank accounts. You will be a very rich woman. But you will also become a target for her nephew. He will try to fight the will. Maybe he will try to scare you or pay you money. Or worse. We are talking about a killer here. Are you ready for that? Rosa was silent. She took a deep breath. She felt her head pounding. The chance of never being hungry again was powerful. Do I have to be? Because we will do everything right legally. But mentally it will be a war. He will not leave you alone. You must be strong. Rosa, Margaret said. Her voice was very weak now. I am not asking you to be perfect. Once you have the money, do what you want with it. But I ask you one thing. See this poisoning case through to the end. So he goes to prison. So he doesn't kill anyone else. And reward everyone who helps you. Do you promise me? The girl looked at Margaret with tears in her eyes. It was the last request of a dying woman. Promise. I will get justice for you. Half an hour later, the room was full of people. The notary was an older man with a briefcase and a stamp. A mind doctor from the neighboring hospital was there too. She was a woman in her 50s. Murphy, Sarah, Rosa and Margaret were all there. The mood in the room was tense and serious. Death was in the air. The notary looked at Margaret with respect. He saw that she was using her last hours to plan revenge. The mind doctor did a quick but complete check. She asked questions. What day is it? Where are you? What is the name of the president? Margaret answered clearly. The doctor wrote on the form. After checking Margaret's eyes and looking at her responses, she wrote patient knows where she is, what time it is and who she is. Mind is clear. Legally able to make a will. Signature. Damn. The final legal step was cleared. The notary opened his laptop and started typing the will. He read it out loud. I, Margaret Chen, with a sound mind and clear memory, leave my entire estate as it belongs to me on the day of my death to Rosa Martinez. He looked up. Miss Chen, are you aware that you are not giving anything to your nephew? Yes, I am aware. That is exactly what I want. Are you acting by your own free will without anyone forcing you? Yes, I confirm. Margaret's eyes fixed on the notary. She showed no doubt about what she was doing. The notary nodded and printed the form with a small portable printer. Murphy filmed the whole thing with his phone camera. Margaret signed with a shaking hand. The notary put his stamp on it and confirmed it. The witnesses were Sarah and a nurse from a nearby department. Murphy brought her in at the last minute to stop any challenge. When everything was done, the notary put the document in an envelope. I will put this in the notary office tomorrow morning. I will make official copies. Everything is legal. There is no way to attack this now. Margaret nodded. Her strength was disappearing fast. Now Murphy leaned forward. Miss Chen, I will take care of the poison testing. I will get all the tests and talk to the district attorney. Daniel will be held responsible. Thank you, she whispered. The word was just a breath of air. But it carried the weight of a mission done. Everyone left. Only Rosa stayed. She stood by the bed not knowing what to say. Her mouth was dry. Go home, Margaret said tiredly. We'll see each other tomorrow, maybe. And remember what you promised. Rosa nodded and went out. Margaret was alone. She stared into the darkness outside the window and thought. 3 days, maybe less. But she had done it. She had stolen from Daniel the thing he killed her for. That was the only thing that mattered now. She felt no pain. Only deep cold calm. The revenge had given her more peace than all her wealth. She died during the night quietly without suffering. The nurses found her in the morning. When Daniel learned about it, he burst into loud crying in the hallway. The hospital staff who he had treated badly for 3 years tried to comfort him. He thanked them while pressing his handkerchief to his face. And victory sparkled in his eyes. He thought he had won. The morning started with a phone call. Daniel Chen sat in Margaret's office. He thought it was his office now. He looked through documents, property papers, bank statements, rent agreements. All this wealth now belonged to him. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of playing the loving nephew. The result was now in front of him. He had already opened Margaret's safe last night after his supposed victory. He found the test reports but thought they were nonsense. He had carefully checked Margaret's property status before marriage. Perfect. No shared property. He was the only heir. He leaned back in the leather chair and stretched. The smell of Margaret's perfume still hung in the air. It didn't bother him anymore. It was the smell of his victory. Outside was a clear November day. The leaves on the trees were yellow and orange. Beautiful. Daniel smiled. Life was falling into place. His phone buzzed. Lisa Park, his girlfriend. The pharmacist he had paid to get him the rare medicine. She was cold and practical. She was the only person who shared his hate for Margaret. He answered. Yes, my dear. How is it going? His girlfriend's voice sounded careful. Great. She died last night. Quietly. No witnesses. The doctor said kidney failure. No questions. Everything is safe. Absolutely. I planned everything perfectly. The dose was tiny. Spread over months. The drug breaks down quickly. There are almost no traces left. Even if someone checks, they won't find anything. I'm a genius, Lisa. Who looks for murder when someone dies of organ failure at 51? Lisa was silent. She wasn't as sure of victory as he was. And the will? What will? She didn't make one. Check. The entire estate is from before the marriage. No children. So I inherit as the nephew. The law is on my side. He was full of confidence. Hope you're right. Daniel, don't wait too long. Take care of the paperwork. Then let's disappear. Lisa, don't be nervous. In 6 months I'll have everything sorted. Sell the business and properties. Then we'll move away. Anywhere you want. Maybe to another country. The money is enough for several lifetimes. We'll open a small shop on the coast. Just for ourselves. Lisa sighed. Just be careful. Take it slow. Play the sad nephew. People need to believe you are heartbroken. I am a professional, Daniel sneered. Don't teach me. I played the role of my life for 3 years. He hung up and went to the cabinet where Margaret kept her expensive whiskey. He poured himself a glass and sipped it. Excellent. Everything in this house was excellent. And now it belonged to him. He felt like a king who had won back his throne. There was a hard knock at the door. The housekeeper, an older woman with red eyes, came in. She had worked for Margaret for 18 years. She always looked at Daniel with suspicion. Mr. Chen, the lawyer is here for you. Thomas Murphy. He's not alone. Daniel frowned. Murphy. That man had always been too smart and too watchful. Margaret had trusted him with all legal matters. What did he want? Was he coming to get his payment? Let him in. Murphy appeared in the office. He was dressed nicely in a suit. His face was serious. His look was hard and judging. He didn't offer his hand to shake. He just nodded. Mr. Chen, my sympathies for your loss. Thank you. Daniel put on a sad face. This is a tragedy. I am heartbroken. He pointed to the whiskey. Would you like a drink to calm down? No, thank you. I need to talk about some legal matters with you. Cannot wait. I'm listening. Please sit down. Murphy sat without being asked. He pulled out a folder. The folder looked thin. But what was inside already seemed scary to Daniel. Margaret Chen left a will. Daniel tensed up. Really? He had checked the safe. Had Margaret tricked him? A cold wave went up his back. When did she do that? That's impossible. She was unconscious. The entire estate that belonged to her when she died has been left to another person. Daniel needed a moment to understand what that meant. The air in the room seemed to freeze. The truth hit him like a hammer to the head. He had killed for nothing. You mean I am not the heir? His voice was suddenly thin. According to the will, Ms. Chan left her property to someone else. It was her legal right. Daniel jumped up. His mask of sadness broke instantly. That's impossible. She was in a coma. When did she do that? He almost screamed. Anger twisted his handsome face. Murphy looked at him coldly. His calm was very different from Daniel's panic. The will was made 1 day before her death. In front of a notary. A mind doctor confirmed she was able to make it. There were 2 witnesses. Everything is completely lawful. We took every legal step you can imagine. To whom? Daniel asked. He felt his back turn cold. To whom did she leave it? My cousin. A charity. That will be announced tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the notary's office. You must attend. Murphy's eyes sparkled briefly. I will fight it. Daniel slammed his fist on the desk. The whiskey glass shook. She was not in her right mind. She was sick. This is fake. We have a doctor's paper confirming her full ability to make decisions at the moment of signing. There is a video recording and statements from the notary. She was mentally clear, Mr. Chen. Murphy stood up. I tell you to prepare yourself mentally and hire your own lawyer. The will is like a fortress. He left without saying goodbye. Daniel stayed alone, breathing heavily. A will. How dare she? How had she done it? He grabbed the phone and called Lisa's number. "We have a problem. Huge problem. Margaret tricked us." The next morning, Daniel appeared at the notary's office. He had barely slept. Lisa Park came with him. He introduced her as a family friend supporting him in this hard time. She wore a dark suit and looked around nervously. The notary, the same older man, met them in his office. Murphy and his assistant Sarah Cole were already sitting there. "Where is the heir?" Daniel asked sharply. His voice shook a little. He expected to see a distant relative or a business partner. "The heir sent a representative," the notary replied. "Her interests are represented by lawyer Murphy based on official power of attorney." "Who is she? Where is she?" The notary opened the folder and pulled out the document. He looked at Daniel with a mix of pity and disgust. According to the will of Margaret Chen, the only heir to her entire estate is Rosa Martinez. "Who is that?" Daniel couldn't believe his ears. "I have never heard of her." Disbelief turned to horror. "The cleaning lady from the hospital where your aunt passed away," the notary confirmed dryly. Lisa grabbed Daniel's arm and squeezed it to warn him not to completely lose control. He swallowed his anger and forced himself to speak calmly. "That's crazy. Margaret didn't know this girl. How could she leave everything to her?" Murphy answered casually as if talking about the weather. "The person making the will is allowed to leave her property to any person she wishes. The law does not need a reason. But I can tell you Miss Chen had very clear reasons. But she was sick. Not in her right mind." Daniel held on to the only hope left. On the contrary, Murphy placed the mind doctor's report on the table. "Here is the report from the doctor who checked her right before the will was signed. Conclusion: legally able to make decisions, mind clear, free will." A video recording of the process also exists. The notary personally recorded her wishes. Everything is perfectly done. Daniel felt the ground sinking under his feet. His face was pale. "And what about me?" The notary patiently explained the obvious. "Your aunt's property was earned before the marriage, so it is not shared property. As the surviving nephew, you are only entitled to your share of property earned together. That is what you bought or earned during the 3 years of marriage. The house, the business, the commercial properties, the bank accounts, all of that belonged to Ms. Chen before the marriage. By the will, these go to Ms. Martinez. You mean I get nothing?" Daniel's voice was a whimper. "You have your salary from the 3 years. Your personal savings. The car in your name. That is your share of jointly earned property. Ms. Chen made sure you are completely without money." Daniel was silent. His head was buzzing. 3 years. For 3 years he had poisoned her, pretended, been patient. For what? So some cleaning woman could get the millions. The revenge was perfect. "Where is she?" he asked quietly. Dangerously quiet. "Ms. Martinez has accepted the inheritance through her representative," the notary replied. "Her location does not need to be told to you. I want to talk to her. I will make her an offer she cannot refuse." "That is impossible," Murphy said. "My client does not want any contact with you. You are considered the killer of your aunt and a threat to Ms. Martinez. I will fight the will. I will sue. That is your right. But I warn you, we have every reason to believe the fight will fail. The will is legally perfect. The person making it clearly expressed her wishes. The medical documents confirm mental ability. There is no basis to cancel the will. You are only wasting your own money on lawyers." Daniel stood up, swaying. Lisa supported him. They left the notary's office in silence. On the street, Daniel stopped and turned to Lisa. His eyes burned with wild hatred. "Everything has fallen apart," he whispered. "Not everything." Lisa looked at him sharply. She wasn't ready to give up her part in the betrayal. "We find this girl. Force her to reject it. Scare her. Pay her. Whatever it takes. The main thing is to act quickly. Murphy has hidden her somewhere. We will find her. Have contacts. People who know how to search. Give me a couple of days. We will take back what is ours." Daniel nodded. Hatred boiled in his chest. Margaret had outsmarted him. Even in death, her revenge had worked. But he wouldn't give up. Not after everything he had invested. His only goal now was destroying Rosa. Meanwhile, a meeting was happening in Murphy's office. Thomas Murphy sat across from Sarah Cole and the private detective, Frank Hudson. Frank was a former police officer. He was a strong man of 44 with gray streaks in his hair. Frank had a reputation for never giving up and being quiet about his work. The situation is as follows, Murphy began. Rosa Martinez is safe. She has moved to a neighboring area called Meadowbrook. She rented a room and took a temporary job. But Daniel will look for her. He won't stop. He is dangerous and desperate. What can he do? Sarah asked. Scare her. Pay her. Force her to give up the inheritance. In the worst case, if she refuses, hurt her physically or kill her. We are dealing with someone who slowly poisoned his aunt. He can do anything. We must not only protect Rosa but also stop him legally. Frank nodded. He had studied Margaret Chen's case files. He was impressed by her planning and intelligence. I will check all the hospital security cameras. I will trace who had contact with Ms. Chen in the last months. I will check pharmacies for what Daniel bought. What medicines? If he poisoned her, traces remain. There are always traces. Another point. We need criminal charges. Without it, Daniel stays free and will continue to hunt Rosa. I have already prepared the complaint for the district attorney. I am including the poison reports that Margaret Chen ordered. They clearly show the substance in her blood that she was not given by doctors. Sarah asked, and what if the report doesn't confirm the poisoning? It will confirm it. Margaret was careful. She sent samples to 2 independent labs. The results are the same. Also, she wrote down the worsening of her condition by date. She kept a diary of symptoms. All of these are supporting evidence. Strong evidence. She documented her own murder case. Who are we giving the case to? District Attorney James Rivera. He is a professional. He doesn't take bribes. If anyone will bring it to trial, it's him. He loves cases based on planning. Frank stood up. I'll start working. I'll give the first results tomorrow. I'll focus on the pharmacies and the camera recordings first. He left. Murphy turned to Sarah. Contact Rosa. Tell her everything is going according to plan. She should stay calm. Not show herself. If anything happens, she should call me right away. I want her to feel safe but not careless. Understood. And one more thing. Get all documents from Ms. Chen. Contracts, property papers, statements. I want to be sure that every property is legally protected. Daniel will try to find weak spots. We close them before he can. Margaret's will must be untouchable. Sarah nodded and went out. Murphy stayed alone. He opened the safe and took out a copy of the will. He read it again. Everything was right. Every word. Every comma. Margaret Chen was a smart woman. Even in death, she had thought of every detail. He remembered their last talk in the hospital room. How calmly she looked at him without fear. Thomas, I know I'm dying. But I want him to get nothing. Not a single cent. He must understand that he killed me for nothing. His victory must become his greatest loss. Ms. Chen, are you sure you want to give everything to Ms. Martinez? You barely know her. I know her. That's enough. She is honest. She works for very little money. She rents a room. She pays off the loan for her dead grandmother's treatment. You can't buy people like that. You can trust revenge to people like that. Revenge. I want Daniel to go to prison. To be found guilty of my murder. And Rosa is a witness. She saw him come into the room. She heard what I said after. She will help the investigation. She promised me. She will be my hand to carry out justice. Murphy had nodded then. And now he was keeping the promise he made to a dying client. He locked the will back in the safe and picked up the phone. He called District Attorney Rivera's number. Mr. Rivera, Murphy here. I have material for you. Possible planned murder by slow poisoning. I am sending you the documents. The case is hard but promising. The evidence is very strong. Rivera was silent on the other end. Send it. I'll look it over. Thank you. I'll wait for the documents. Murphy hung up. Now all that was left was waiting. Waiting for the wheels of justice to start turning. Slowly but surely. Meanwhile, Rosa Martinez sat in her small rental room in Meadowbrook. She sat on an old couch looking out the window. Light rain was falling outside. The drops ran down the glass and joined into winding streams. She still couldn't believe it. Everything seemed like a dream. 2 days ago she was mopping floors in a hospital hallway. She earned small money. She counted pennies until the next payday. And today her lawyer Murphy had told her she was the heir to a huge fortune. Rosa was not happy. She was scared. The huge amount felt not like a gift but like a burden she didn't deserve. Like a magnet for bad things. She knew Margaret's nephew wouldn't leave her alone. He would come. He would search. And then what? Her phone buzzed. Tara Cole. Ms. Martinez, how are you doing? Pretty good. I'm at home. It's quiet here. Excellent. Don't go out unless you have to. Daniel has already started searching. We are watching what he does. He doesn't know where you are yet. But be careful. Stay hidden. All right, I understand. One more thing. Soon the district attorney will want to call you to give a statement about what you saw in the hospital. What Ms. Chen said. Be ready. Your words are very important. I'm ready. Promised her. I'm not afraid of talking. Just of him. Very good. Hang in there. Rosa hung up. She remembered Margaret Chen's face. Vin. But with a clear, strong look. She remembered her last words. See this poisoning case through to the end so he goes to prison. She would see it through no matter what happened. Because Margaret had given her a chance. The chance for a different life. And Rosa wouldn't let her down. The revenge wasn't hers. But the justice she owed Margaret was her new purpose in life. Dusk was breaking outside. Somewhere in another city, Daniel Chen was gathering information, making plans, getting ready to attack. And here in the quiet room, the girl who was nobody yesterday was getting ready for her defense. The game had begun. And the stakes were too high to lose. District Attorney James Rivera sat in his office at the Criminal Division headquarters. He was studying the documents given by lawyer Murphy. The folder was thick. Medical reports, poison tests from 2 independent labs, pieces from the medical history, the personal diary of the dead Margaret Chen. In it she wrote down the symptoms by date. Rivera was an experienced investigator. He had a reputation for being careful and honest. He didn't like big dramatic cases. But when he took one on, he finished it. Now he was reading the poison report for the 3rd time. Everything fit together. Traces of a medicine used to help dying people feel less pain were found in Ms. Chen's blood. In big amounts it is deadly. The substance was rare. Strictly by prescription only. Ms. Chen did not have a cancer illness. Where did it come from? Rivera picked up the phone and called Murphy. Mr. Murphy, I got the documents. One question. Were there any reasons for Ms. Chen to take this medicine? Her doctor confirmed he had not given her anything like that. Also, Margaret Chen herself became suspicious and secretly sent samples to an outside lab. The results will shock you, but they are real. Missy. Who had access to her food and medicine? Mainly the nephew Daniel Chen. They lived together. He made her juice. He brought her pills. The housekeeper came 3 times a week. But she has worked for 18 years. Completely trustworthy. The other contacts were occasional. The nephew's reason is the inheritance. Ms. Chen owned a medical supply company. Commercial properties. Large bank accounts. All earned before the marriage. She had no children. If she died without a will, Daniel would have inherited everything as the only legal heir. But she left a will. One day before her death. In favor of an outside person. The cleaning lady Rosa Martinez. Daniel was left with nothing. That was Margaret's final move. Interesting. So he had reason, way, and chance. Classic 3. This is a clear case. Very cynical though. Exactly. Also there is a witness. Rosa Martinez heard Ms. Chen tell me about her suspicion. She is ready to talk. She is now in a safe place. Daniel is looking for her actively, trying to scare her, to force her to give up the inheritance. A fear for her life. Rivera frowned. But I am opening an investigation into suspicion of murder. Under the first-degree murder law, I will order the body to be dug up for a new medical exam. If the poisoning is confirmed, Daniel will face a high sentence. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. I knew you were the right person for this case. You're welcome. I'm just doing my job. Rivera hung up and began writing the order to open the investigation. Hard work lay ahead. But he liked cases like this, when everything fits together into a clear picture. When the criminal thinks they escaped punishment, and then realizes the net is closing in. 2 days later, the district attorney got court approval for the digging up of Margaret Chen's body. The procedure happened privately. Samples were sent for examination to a top medical center in Washington, D.C. While the experts worked, Rivera began collecting supporting evidence. He told his assistants to look at security camera recordings from pharmacies in the area where Ms. Chen lived. Task was simple. Find out if Daniel had bought the medicine in question. The result came after 1 week. In a recording from one of the private pharmacies, Daniel Chen was clearly visible. He went to the counter. He spoke with the pharmacist. He gave money. He got a package. The date was 2 months before Ms. Chen's death. Rivera called the pharmacist in for questioning. A nervous, scared woman in her 50s. Do you remember this man? The district attorney showed a photo of Daniel. Yes, I remember. He came several times. He bought the pain medicine. He said his mother had cancer. The doctors let him give it at home so she wouldn't suffer. The pharmacist looked down. The lie clearly hurt her. Did you have a prescription? The pharmacist turned pale. Well, he said he lost the prescription. He offered to pay more. I needed the money. It was a mistake, I know. How often did he buy it? 4 or 5 times. I don't know exactly. Rivera nodded. Do you realize you broke the law? The sale of prescription drugs without a prescription. And if this drug was used to kill someone, you helped. The woman cried. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Write a statement. Admit it willingly. That will help lessen your guilt. But you will have to talk in court. She nodded, wiping away her tears. Rivera dictated the form to her. She signed. Another thread leading to Daniel was written down. At the same time, Private Detective Frank Hudson did his own investigation. He got all security camera recordings from the hospital where Ms. Chen was admitted. He looked at who went into her room, when and for how long. Daniel Chen was seen regularly bringing fruit and flowers, sitting by the bed. On the cameras he looked like a perfect nephew. But one day Frank noticed a detail. Daniel came into the room with a thermos. He stayed for 10 minutes. He left without the thermos. An hour later the nurse came to collect the dishes. The thermos was empty. Frank got the medical records. On that day Ms. Chen's condition got much worse. Sickness, weakness, confusion. The doctors blamed it on the illness getting worse. The detective found the nurse and did an unofficial interview with her. Do you remember the day Daniel brought his aunt juice in a thermos? Yes, I remember. Ms. Chen drank a little and then said the juice tasted bitter. I thought it was too strong. And what did Daniel say? Nothing. He smiled and said she had always been picky. He seemed calm. Frank wrote down the statement. Another building block for the charges. It showed the criminal's method and cold heart. At the same time he tracked Daniel's actions after the will was announced. Daniel had hired people. 2 strong men from a private security company. They searched the city. They questioned Rosa's former co-workers, neighbors, people who knew her. They were desperately looking for where she was. Frank reported to Murphy. Daniel has become active. His men have already found out that Rosa rented a room on the edge of the city. They questioned the landlady. She said the girl moved out a week ago and didn't leave a new address. They will find her sooner or later. We must act before they do. Yes, they have resources. We must get ahead of them. I suggest we arrange a meeting between Rosa and Daniel's people. Under our control. We record the attempt to force and scare her. That will be the basis for another criminal case. Forcing someone to do a deal. But we use his greed as a trap. Murphy thought about it. Risky but doable. I'll talk to Rosa. She must understand the risk. He contacted Rosa Martinez and explained the plan. The girl did not agree right away. She was afraid. He shook on the phone. I can't do this, Mr. Murphy. He's a killer. He wants to kill me. But Murphy convinced her. Rosa, they will find you anyway. It is better that it happens on our terms. And he will think you agree to hand over the estate to him. We will be nearby. The police will be nearby. Nothing will happen to you. And Daniel will be pushed even more into a corner. Think of Ms. Chen's wish. Fine, she said quietly. I'll do it. For Margaret. Frank arranged an information leak. Through a contact at the security company. He passed a hint to Daniel's men that Rosa was working in a small private clinic in the neighboring city of Meadowbrook. The information reached Daniel 2 days later. He was very happy to finally have a clear lead. He drove there right away with Lisa Park and 2 bodyguards. The plan was simple. Find the girl. Scare her. Force her to sign the giving up of inheritance. If she refused, use stronger pressure. Daniel was determined to force his money back. Even if it meant Rosa's death. They tracked Rosa in the evening as she left the clinic. They surrounded her on an empty street. The air was cold and damp. Got dark early. Daniel stepped forward and smiled. But it was a smile like a knife. Rosa Martinez, finally. We need to talk. Listen carefully. The girl backed away. Daniel continued without raising his voice, which made him scarier. You got something that rightfully belongs to me. Margaret was my aunt. I took care of her for 3 years. And you are just a random girl in the right place at the right time. Do you think that's fair? Rosa stayed silent. She held Margaret's wish firmly in her heart. Daniel pulled papers from his pocket. Here is the giving up of inheritance. You sign and I will give you $200,000. That's enough to pay off your debts and start a new life. You refuse. He nodded to the bodyguards. You will be sorry right away. I won't sign, Rosa gasped. Her knees were shaking. But her voice was clear. Daniel frowned. Lisa stepped closer and spoke sweetly but with a cold look. Sweetie, you don't understand who you're dealing with. Daniel is not one to give up. If you don't sign willingly, he will force you. Painfully. Think of yourself. Your health. The money is not worth it. Said no. I made a promise to the dead and I'm keeping it. One of the bodyguards moved forward. But at that moment Frank came around the corner. Behind him were 2 uniformed police officers. Please. Stay where you are. Daniel froze. Lisa went pale. The bodyguards looked around confused. Frank went to Rosa. Are you okay? She was shaking but held herself up. They threatened me. They wanted me to sign the giving up of inheritance. The police officer wrote down the statement. Daniel tried to explain. We were just talking. There were no threats. This is a mix-up. We recorded everything. Frank pulled Rosa's voice recorder from her pocket. Every word, including the sentence that she will be sorry if she refuses. Your attempt to force is now documented. Daniel realized he was trapped. The police officers made a report and arrested him and Lisa for questioning. The bodyguards were let go with an order to appear. At the police station, Daniel was held until the morning. Then he was released on bail. But the case was opened. Rivera got the documents and started proceedings for forcing someone to do a deal and threat of violence. Now 2 cases were running against Daniel. The murder of Margaret Chen and the threat against the heir. The situation became very bad. Daniel's desperate greed had betrayed him. Daniel returned to the house that no longer belonged to him. Lisa sat on the couch holding her head and crying. Everything is falling apart, Daniel. They are closing in on us. That was a trap and we walked right into it. Shut up, he snarled. I'm thinking. There must be a way. What is there to think about? We have to run while we still can. Run where? Have no money. Margaret left everything to that girl. All I have left is my small salary from 3 years, which is long gone. Without money I am nobody. Then what should we do? Daniel was silent. He knew time was running out. The district attorney was digging. The detective was gathering proof. Witnesses were talking. Soon he would be arrested. And then it would be all over. He needed a plan. Desperate. Risky. But a plan. He had to force Rosa Martinez to give up the inheritance. He grabbed the phone and called the number of one of his bodyguards. Listen closely. I need all the information about Rosa Martinez. Everything you find. Where she lives. Where she works. Who is guarding her. I'll pay double. We're doing this ourselves now. The bodyguard agreed. Daniel hung up. The rush went through him. He knew it was crazy. The district attorney was already on his trail. Tomorrow the questioning. He could be arrested. But if he did nothing he would lose for sure. And if Rosa Martinez gave up the inheritance, the case would fall apart. No inheritance. No reason. Without a reason the charge is weaker. He had to force her to break her will. He packed his things. Money. Documents. Backup phone. He left a note for the housekeeper saying he had gone to a friend's house for a few days. His nerves couldn't take it. He got into the car and drove to meet the bodyguard. Meanwhile in Meadowbrook, Rosa Martinez finished her workday. The clinic closed at 6 in the evening. She changed clothes and went out onto the street. December had come. Cold wind. Dampness. Got dark early. Rosa walked down the empty street toward the bus stop. She felt growing fear inside her. A feeling of something bad coming. Her phone buzzed. Tara Cole. Rosa, where are you? On my way home. Work is over. Frank couldn't pick you up today. He has another case. Be careful. Call right away if anything happens. Don't stand around in the dark. All right. Rosa put the phone away. She looked around. The street was empty. The street lights burned dimly. She felt uncomfortable. She walked faster. Behind her she heard the sound of an engine. Car. Rosa turned around. Black SUV was driving slowly. Almost next to her. The window went down. An unknown man was driving. In the back seat, Daniel Chen. His face was a cold mask of rage and desperation. Rosa Martinez, get in. We need to talk. This time there are no lawyers. Whoa. She backed away. The SUV stopped. The doors flew open. 2 strong men in dark clothes jumped out. One grabbed Rosa by the arm. The other covered her mouth. She tried to break free, but her strength wasn't enough. She was pushed into the car and squeezed between the bodyguards. The SUV drove off. Daniel turned to her. Too bad you're so uncooperative, Rosa. We could have agreed peacefully. But now it has to be different. This is your last mistake. She stayed silent, almost choking with fear. The smell of Daniel Chen's expensive cologne was now mixed with the stink of fear. The car drove out of the city. It turned onto a dirt road and stopped at an empty warehouse. The place was the definition of emptiness. Daniel got out and nodded to the bodyguards. Get her out. Quick and quiet. Rosa was dragged out of the car and brought to the warehouse. Daniel froze. The bodyguards rushed to the door. But police officers with guns drawn were already storming into the warehouse. Police. Hands up. Daniel tried to run but was immediately grabbed and handcuffed. The bodyguards were also arrested. Frank came in next. He went to Rosa and helped her stand up. His face was worried. Are you okay? Are you alive? Yes, she croaked. The pain was real. But the relief was overwhelming. Well done. Hold on. An ambulance is on the way. You made him reveal himself. Daniel was led out of the warehouse and put into the police car. He looked at Rosa with pure hatred. She stood there leaning on Frank. And she felt for the first time in a long time everything will be all right. Justice had won. Frank explained to her later in the hospital after the doctors had treated her wounds. We were watching Daniel's phone. When he left the city we knew he was planning something. We contacted the local police and worked together. We got there in time. Thank you. Rosa held an ice pack to her split lip. If you hadn't been there, don't think about it. The most important thing is you are alive. And Daniel is going behind bars for a long time now. Attempted murder. Kidnapping. That. Plus the main case. The murder of Ms. Chen. He faces 20 years. Rosa nodded. The pain slowly went away. She closed her eyes and remembered Margaret Chen's face. The promise she had made her. She had kept it. The next day, District Attorney Rivera questioned Daniel Chen. He sat in the jail cell, unshaven, with a dead look. He no longer looked like the charming young man of the past, but like a broken, greedy fool. Daniel Chen, you are charged with the planned murder of your Aunt Margaret Chen by slow poisoning. Also the kidnapping and attempted murder of Rosa Martinez. Do you admit your guilt? Well, Daniel stared at the table. We have the expert report confirming the poisoning. We have witnesses who saw you buy the medicine at the pharmacy without a prescription. We have security recordings from the hospital showing you bringing your aunt juice in a thermos after which she got worse. And we have a recording of your talk with Ms. Martinez in which you state directly, I killed Margaret slowly, carefully. I mixed poison into her juice for 3 months. Do you want me to play the recording? Daniel was silent. Rivera turned on the voice recorder. Daniel's voice sounded clear, arrogant, and victorious, although the words now betrayed him. I killed Margaret slowly, carefully. I mixed poison into her juice for 3 months. I watched her waste away and I didn't care. Rivera turned off the recording. That is your voice. Daniel Chen, you have convicted yourself. Daniel did not answer. Rivera continued. We also have the statement from Ms. Martinez, whom you kidnapped, beat, and threatened with death if she did not give up the inheritance. Injuries were found on her body. Your bodyguards have already talked and confirmed that they acted on your command. Daniel Chen, you have trapped yourself. The only thing that can help you is a full confession. Daniel lifted his head. I want a lawyer. You're right. The questioning is over. Rivera left the cell and called Murphy. Mr. Murphy, Daniel has been arrested. The court ordered jail before trial. Running away is ruled out. So is pressure on witnesses. We can move to the next step. Excellent. I am preparing the documents for the civil case. Daniel continues to fight the will. But his position is even weaker now. The court will see a man charged with the murder of his aunt is trying to get her property. That looks heartless. Agreed. What are his chances of winning the civil case? 0. The will is perfectly made. Medical report on mental ability. Video recording. Statements of the notary. Everything is there. The court will clearly dismiss his claim. Margaret's revenge is legally airtight. Then only the criminal case remains. I will continue gathering proof. I will soon give the case to the district attorney's office for charges. Keep me informed. Rivera ended the call. The work was going according to plan. Meanwhile, Rosa Martinez sat in an apartment Murphy had rented for her, a safe place guarded around the clock. She looked out the window at the December sky and thought about how her life had changed. A month ago she was nobody. She mopped floors. She earned tiny money. She lived in a rental room. And now she was the heir to a huge fortune. A key witness in a criminal case. A woman who was almost murdered. She was not happy about the money. Not yet. Because she knew this price was the price of Margaret Chen's life. And that price gave her a duty. The millions felt cold and heavy. Like a huge inheritance she could not yet carry. Her phone rang. Murphy. Ms. Martinez, how are you? The bruises are healing. I don't feel pain anymore. Just the memory. Have news. Daniel is in jail. The investigation is collecting the final proof. The case will soon go to trial. At the same time, the civil case about the will is ongoing. There will be a decision in 1 month. And what should I do? Takwin asked. And prepare yourself to be the rightful owner of Ms. Chen's entire estate after the decision. You must learn to carry this responsibility. Rosa was silent. Mr. Murphy, what if I don't want it? What if I don't want all this? The money, the houses, the business. I am afraid. I don't know how to handle it. It is more than I can imagine. Murphy sighed. He understood her internal fight. Rosa Margaret didn't choose you by chance. She saw something in you that others didn't. Honesty maybe. Or simply goodness. She wanted you to have a chance. Don't reject it. Take the money. Build your life. But remember, you promised her to see this through to the end. And you will keep your promise. This fortune is your tool for a better life. Not your chains. Remember. I will do it. That's good. Hang in there. It will be over soon. Rosa hung up and looked at the photo of Margaret Chen that Murphy had given her. A middle-aged woman with a smart face and a strong look. She had lived a hard life, built a business, lost love, and was then betrayed and murdered. Rosa said softly into the empty air, I will see this through. Promise. I will complete your victory over Daniel. In prison, Daniel Chen lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. Life had crashed. Everything he had built in 3 years fell apart in 1 month. Margaret had defeated him. Even after her death. He remembered her last days. How she lay in the hospital room pale weak. How he whispered to her thinking she was unconscious. How he celebrated. But she had heard everything, understood everything, and launched a counterattack from which he would never recover. Daniel closed his eyes. The cell was cold and stuffy at the same time. Water dripped somewhere. His cellmate was snoring. Life went on. But for him it had stopped. He remembered Lisa. She had left when she sensed the danger. Smart woman. She was always smarter than him. She had used him just as he had used Margaret. The truth that he had only been a tool in the hands of both women was shameful. Daniel turned to the wall. Tomorrow another questioning. Then the court. Then the sentence. 20 years, maybe more. He would never know freedom again. 20 years at his age, that was a death sentence. He smiled bitterly. Margaret knew what she was doing. She had spared his life. But taken everything he had lived for. That was worse than death. She had taken his soul by denying him his greed. Footsteps were heard outside. The guards were bringing someone new in. The door of the next cell slammed shut. Daniel didn't move. He didn't care. Margaret had won. And that victory was complete. 6 months passed. Spring came surprisingly quickly. The city was filled with the smell of fresh plants. Rosa Martinez stood by the window of her new apartment looking down at the wide street. The apartment was large, bright with high ceilings. Her apartment. Bought with Margaret's money. Much had changed in these months. The investigation was done. The case of Daniel Chen was handed over to the court. At the same time, the civil case about the will was finished. The court had declared Margaret Chen's will lawful and fair, and dismissed Daniel's challenge. Rosa was officially the heir to the entire fortune. The house, the medical supply company, the 2 shopping areas, the office spaces, and the bank accounts. The amount was huge. About $35 million. Rosa hired managers for the business. She asked real estate agents to sell some of the properties. She didn't want to keep everything. It was too much. She sold the shopping areas and one of the office buildings. She kept the house and the company that was working well and bringing in steady money. She put the money from the sale in safe investments. She gave a part to a charity for kidney disease patients. She used another part to pay off all her debts, those of her grandmother and distant family. She paid Murphy and his team a big fee, more than they had asked for. Frank too. She gave District Attorney Rivera an expensive watch. He couldn't accept money, but he accepted the gift. Thank you, Rivera said, shaking her hand. Not everyone stands up to such pressure. You are an amazing woman. You carried out the task of justice with flying colors. I only kept my promise. That was my duty. That is worth a lot. Rosa smiled. Rivera left, and she stayed alone in Murphy's office. Thomas Murphy poured her a cup of tea and sat across from her. What now, Ms. Martinez? I don't know. I want to live in peace without fear. Without being chased. I want to go to college. to train as a counselor. Now I have the chance. I want to understand what makes people do things. Both greed and goodness. That is right. Margaret would have wanted you to be happy. To rebuild your life. I will try. I owe her that. Murphy nodded. If you need anything, reach out to me. I will always help. Thank you. She finished the tea, said goodbye, and walked out onto the street. The day was warm and sunny. The city lived its normal life. People rushed to work. Children played in the yards. Sellers served customers in the stores. Rosa was now part of this normal world. No longer the invisible cleaning woman. Rosa got into a taxi and gave the address. Margaret Chen's house. Now her house. It stood in a quiet neighborhood surrounded by a garden. She went inside. Walked through the rooms. Everything was clean and tidy. The housekeeper had retired, but came once a week to air out and clean. Rosa went upstairs to Margaret's bedroom. The room was large and bright. Photos stood on the table. Margaret in her younger years. Beautiful. Self-assured. Rosa took the house keys from her pocket and placed them next to the photo on the table. She said softly, "Miss Chen, I did everything you asked of me. Daniel is convicted. He got 22 years. He won't poison anyone anymore. Won't trick anyone anymore. Thank you for your trust. For the chance. I will try to be worthy of what you left me. This inheritance is my second chance." She stood there silently. Then left the room. Went downstairs to the living room. Sat in the chair by the fireplace. And closed her eyes. It was over. Daniel was behind bars. Lisa too. The inheritance was settled. The debts paid. Life was beginning again. Rosa remembered the day in the hospital room when Margaret had called her. She remembered her words. "If you do everything I say, you will never work as a cleaner again." At the time it seemed like the confused words of a sick person. Now it was real. She opened her eyes and looked at the fireplace. Life had given her a chance. Margaret had given her a chance. And she would not waste it. She would use this money to do good and fulfill herself. She kept the house but rarely lived there. Most of the time she was in the apartment downtown. The business was making money. The managers worked honestly. Rosa watched the finances but did not interfere with the day-to-day work. She knew she still had a lot to learn. Rosa often thought of Daniel. Had she forgiven him? Well, but she also felt no hatred. Only nothing. Daniel was the past. Along with a life where she mopped floors and lived on the edge of poverty. In the fall, Rosa enrolled in college for counseling. She wanted to study the depths of human nature. To understand how distrust and greed could grow in a man like Daniel. And at the same time she returned to Margaret's house. She walked through the rooms, stopping by the bedroom. She entered, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at the photo. "Miss Chen, a year has passed. You made it. I learned to live with this inheritance. Didn't waste it. Didn't go crazy with money. Daniel is in jail serving his sentence. Lisa too. Everything as you wanted. Thank you for your trust. For the chance. Your revenge was my rebirth." She stood up, left the room, and closed the door quietly and carefully. Life went on. Without revenge. Without hatred. Just life. And that was the best thing Rosa could do. Live with dignity and honesty in memory of the woman who had given her everything. Margaret Chen had won. Not through violence or meanness, but through intelligence, planning, and the belief in the existence of justice. Daniel had paid for every dose of poison, for every lie, for every second he watched his aunt die. And Rosa had been given a chance. And she used that chance right. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.